No one's ever said that about us, Dave, have they?
Well, there are forms of entertainment, aren't there? You know, for every comedy, there's a tragic thriller somewhere.
Don't you? Look, I would ask you, wouldn't I? Or or the medical team would say, look, there's a few lads sniffing around the Christmas do, and it's like, what, in October?
August.
Can't we just concentrate on the football for a little bit? But it feels like they want to get it organised and boxed up. Yeah, it's like you say, I think you sort of know what the second part of your season might look like, don't you? Based on this period, you pick up a few wins. Suddenly, maybe you're sat in 8th or 9th in the championship, and you're thinking, do you know what? We've a couple more wins and get on a little roll, and we're right in the mix. Welcome, football fans, to Breaking Lines, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the beautiful game like never before. I'm Gary Rowett, former player and manager, joined by the insightful Dave Carolan, a man with his finger on the pulse of football's beating heart. Together, Dave and I bring you unrivaled insight, context, and a few stories from the trenches. Join us as we dissect the game, break down the plays, and explore the intricate dance between managers, players, fans, and the beautiful game itself. This is Breaking Lines, where the game is more than just a match.
So we're at that time of the year. It's Christmas in football, Gary. One of the best times of the year, I suppose, with the games coming thick and fast.
Well, before we slate it, maybe we should get some kudos.
Slate it.
No, I didn't actually. Yeah, that wasn't intentional. Yeah, everyone in football, all the fans and all our listeners have a great time. And now we can say what we really want to say about Christmas when we're involved in football. No, look, I think most of us. It's always a difficult one, isn't it? It's a real challenge because we love football, we love being in football, and actually, Boxing Day fixtures and the games over sort of Christmas, the festive period and New Year are actually really good to be involved in, aren't they? Because people get behind those games. There's so much excitement for those games. But on the flip side, there's a family there waiting at home thinking, why on earth is Dad not there at all like other dads? So, yeah. Again.
For the 12th year running.
Yeah, so I think that's probably the sad part of being out of football is actually it's probably the first time you actually get to enjoy a Christmas. Normally, look, there's people in hospitals will be working on Christmas Day. People have to take it in turns. People will, there'll be different people doing different jobs. But the majority of people, I think we can all say probably get Christmas off and it's a one time a year to spend with your family. And it's not easy, is it?
No, it certainly isn't an easy thing to do, to be the entertainment that people go and watch over Christmas.
No one's ever said that about us, Dave, have they?
Well, there are forms of entertainment, aren't there? For every comedy, there's a tragic thriller somewhere. But yeah, I suppose the ramp up to the Christmas period is like the festive period of football. That kind of starts early for us, doesn't it? Because as soon as almost you get into December, it's termed the festive period of football, because you look at it this season, you could have 7-9 games all in December. It's an unbelievably dense period of games, and it's quite a pivotal part of the season as well, because you're turning around in the second half of the season by the time you get into New Year's. Yeah, and I think if you get to that sort of third international break, don't you? You've got half an eye on this period. You've got half an eye on this, the amount of sheer volume of games and the lack of training opportunities. And I think within that creates its own challenge, doesn't it? You've got that period first, and then on the back end of it, you've got, the Boxing Day game. And for some, what was it for this year? Is it the 23rd? The Saturday falls on the 23rd, I think. The Boxing Day game, of course, 3 days later. And I'm trying to remember, years gone by, did we not have a game on like the in between Boxing Day and New Year as well? Was it like the 28th or 29th? Yeah, there is. And again this year.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know why. But
You've forgotten quickly, haven't you?
Yeah, I just remember the Boxing Day game, and I remember literally one day in between. I think it's for Blues, and we played Derby at home. Remember in the snow, we got battered.
I'm trying to forget it.
And then 2 days later, the reason I can remember it, because I can remember thinking, do you know what? We were so poor. I'm going to do what no one does. I'm going to name the same team. Everyone thinks you've got to rotate and all of those things. I'm going to name the same team and see what to do about it. And literally a game in between, we went to the City Ground and we won the game in front of the cameras. So it doesn't feel like the games are as close together anymore. I don't know whether that's just me. had too much eggnog.
Eggnog.
The past week.
Yeah, I suppose after a defeat, you do turn to the Christmas grog that happens to be sat around the house. If you actually get back to your house for any kind of length of time over the Christmas period. But the games are thick and fast. Generally, depending on what day Christmas falls on, you could have 3 games in almost 6 days or 5 days even, depending on if the schedule for Sky has meant that your games got shifted. But I suppose well and truly the Christmas period starts when there's a knock on your door sometime around November and the players are trying to line up the Christmas party.
Why did you have to say that?
Well, let's be honest. At that point, once the Christmas party is done and dusted, it's eyes down and it's full steam ahead. How does that conversation happen? When are the players, when are they starting to think about the Christmas period? Because for them, there's obviously that traditional social period where they're going to go out as a team to build camaraderie. We've talked about camaraderie a lot on this show, but it's a big, big event for them, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Look, I mean, they hide behind the cunning guise of building team spirit and camaraderie, don't they? But really, they just want a good night out. And it isn't just a night out anymore. Most clubs and most teams do the same thing, don't they? They want 2 days. They want to try and have 2 days where they can go and have a little bit of a drink. Because the truth about a lot of players now is they don't actually drink a lot. But there's a lot of players now that are teetotal. There's a lot of players that are actually, very, very professional. Not that the players in my day weren't professional, but we prided ourselves on being just as professional recovering from a Wednesday all day bender than we did preparing for the Saturday game. So, it's not to be sniffed at, certainly. I think the players would normally, they'd send the captain. It's funny because you could sort of get a feel for it, don't you? I would ask you, wouldn't I? Or the medical team would say, look, there's a few lads sniffing around the Christmas do. And it's like, what, in October?
August.
Can't we just concentrate on the football for a little bit? But it feels like they want to get it organised and box off. So it's always hard to give them an answer. But of course, usually they send the most unfortunate one in, which is the captain.
Yes.
So the captain, who you'd imagine would be an incredible leader of men, burst through your door demanding, but usually it's a faint knock. Oh, all right, Gaffer, try and butter you up first before you kind of get around to, okay, what do you really want? It's a Christmas do, isn't it? Yeah. Well, what the lads? Yeah, you can have a night. Yeah, no problem. Well, the lads like the Sunday as well as the Saturday. So, for God's sake. So, I think as a manager, look, you don't mind your lads going out. You don't mind the players socialising. I think it's like anybody around this time of year. Everyone has a Christmas party. Everyone has a works Christmas do. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it. I think as long as there isn't a detrimental effect on the matches, and that's always been my policy. If there's a game 3 days later, then no, you can't go. You're going to have to do it around when we think is the best time for you to do it. So, yeah, but as soon as that Christmas do's out the way and hopefully the manager doesn't get to find out about all the stories, which is usually better, because what you don't know can't hurt you, I suppose. And then you're into the games, aren't you? And I'd love to sit here as a manager and say that I could blame you, Dave, for what day we come in. And I think you are partially culpable. So let's not just make this about me, but yes, it's that challenge, isn't it? Right. We've had this debate for about 10 years now, right? Do we come in Christmas Day? Do we give them a day off before the game? Because we would never, ever give them the day off before a game, would we? That is the reality. So,
absolutely.
So, what goes into that decision making, would you say, like from your perspective?
Look, from my perspective, I'm an advisor. You're the decision maker.
Thanks.
I just have to deal with the players for about, probably 4 weeks before they come and knock on your door. They're trying to get a flavour for what the decision, or at least what the reaction might be. But yeah, when it comes to that Christmas period, I suppose it comes down to, what is the schedule looking like? We know the fixtures, and generally speaking, we'll get the TV schedule maybe 6 to 8 weeks ahead of time. They will have selected what games they're likely to have moved. And once that's set in stone, then it's how many training days are we going to get? What's the best for the whole squad in terms of the players who are going to play and getting them recovered and prepared, the players who are not playing but who may need to come in and play some of those games, because largely speaking, and you've alluded to it a little bit before, there's going to be some rotation. It's going to be practically impossible for the same 11 players to go out and play 4 games in the best part of 10 or 12 days. So we're going to have to rotate some players. So how do we train them? Which doesn't mean just the running that they do afterwards on the pitch after each game. They actually need to do some, actual football training. It's not just down to like box to box runs. So I think that's what really plays into our minds as to the physical schedule of the training load and of the training days over the Christmas period. Now, we're obviously going to be painted as the Grinch who stole Christmas, because we're going to probably insist as best as we can that ideally we do want to train on Christmas Day at some stage, but I'm happy to be talked out of it from time to time, which you've
been where the game is,
which you've managed to successfully do 8 years in a row.
Quick question: do you think any player has ever been suspended on purpose for Boxing Day to get himself out of it?
Yeah,
under pressure from the missus.
Oh, 1,000,000%. There have been red cards, double yellows.
You gone straight with a red, not even a second yellow, not even a fifth yellow or whatever the booking is.
Yeah, this is the time of year to start looking at who's got suspended on 10 bookings or a spurious red card that happens the weekend before Christmas, or a mysterious injury that suddenly appears and you think he's only been out for a week, but it was enough to keep him out of the Christmas or Boxing Day games. So yeah, there definitely has been something like that happen in the past.
It's got to be, hasn't there? I think the hardest bit I always find and found was it's that little bit weighing on your shoulders of, okay, can footballers have one day off a year? Obviously have more than one day off a year, but one day, specifically Christmas Day. So the amount of time that we're together during a season, is that psychologically going to give you more when they're at home with their families, provided you can trust them and they can act accordingly and prepare accordingly? Are you going to get that back in the performance on Boxing Day? I think this is always a challenge, isn't it? We've done it different ways, haven't we? We've been in Christmas night to travel. I mean, again, it depends where you're playing, doesn't it? We've had some absolute shockers, haven't we? Like Cardiff. I mean, for you, that was got to be the worst fixture ever. So to go from Norwich to London on Christmas Day to get there for, say, 5 o'clock training at the Den to train under the lights, let's say, and then to travel straight after down to Cardiff and then to try and get back Boxing Day. So,
loved it.
Absolute beautiful, wasn't it? So, you certainly want to...
That's what all my Christmases were meant to be.
Yeah. In fact, I remember organising it one year and your family said, your missus said, can you not train a bit earlier so Dave can get out of the house earlier? No, but I think that, so it depends on where you're playing, doesn't it? It depends on how far away you are. We seem to always be away. Boxing Day, I don't know why, but we seem to always be away. Which doesn't make it any easier because we're already away in London as it was, or whatever club we're at. So, but I think that's the challenge, isn't it? Do you train on Christmas Day? And if so, logistically, all of a sudden now, people don't see this, do they? But you've now got to get your groundsman in and all his ground stuff. You've now got to get people in to open up the ground, because usually if you're training in the evening, you need the lights on. So you're going to train at your home ground. So therefore, people have to come in to make sure everything's safe and everything's open and whatever. So essentially, it's not just the football team, is it? It's not just the staff. There's probably another 20 people that are dragged into your decision, depending on what you need. But I think the most professional way to do it is to go in Christmas Day at some point. It's tough, wasn't it? We've all done it. I mean, I remember as a player, at Derby, we had to train in the morning. It's the first time I've only ever done it once. We had to train in the morning, and the agreement was, let's get in and get it done. So, of course, you're in for 9 to train. I'm thinking, luckily for me, my kids were young and they were probably up since about 5 o'clock in the morning. So kind of Christmas was
You'd
done.
Already built 7 toys by the time you got to training.
I'd already used about 5,000 batteries and all the tools I have available in my toolkit. So there's different scenarios that cause different issues, isn't there? But ultimately, it's such a tough one, because it's a day for families. It's a day to be together. It's hard to prepare in the same way. I got hammered once by my missus. Honestly, I remember, and this was probably a very poor, ill-judged comment. Not the only one. I've usually make them in front of the microphone after a game, but this time I made it to my missus. I said, look, I don't want Christmas dinner this year. I'm just going to have some pasta.
Oh, my God.
I'm just going to have some pasta. No, I genuinely did. And I did it out of what I thought was, this is incredible professionalism. But basically, I was literally the most miserable human being on earth for saying it. So yeah, I'm going to apologise now, but I still think I was right.
Yeah, I remember in my naivety, this was even more unpopular because I weighed all of the players on Christmas Eve.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh.
I dressed it up as on the behest of the manager. We're weighing you all so that nobody overeats.
Right, if any of the players are listening, but a lot of these decisions had nothing to do with the manager. Nothing to do with me. I got blamed for basically everything and still probably am, but yeah, go on. So you weighed the players.
Yeah, weighed the players in. And it wasn't even that we were going to weigh them again afterwards. It was just to sow the seed of look after yourself.
You horrible man.
In Neil Warnock's great Sky Christmas ad this year, be disciplined, because
took him about 30 takes by the look of it when you saw the program last night.
That is one of the challenges we have, isn't it? They have families around. They want to enjoy their Christmas with everyone else. There's a traditional meal to be had, and it kind of may not be what they necessarily have the day before a game. There is something different going on. They probably will share a drink, maybe only one, but again, they wouldn't do that normally when they're at a hotel with us, or they were just preparing for any other Saturday game. We can see sometimes behavior change because of the day that's in it. But we've also seen with some of our players that come from abroad where they celebrate on Christmas Eve, that they don't have that Christmas Day urge that they have to be in because there's a dinner to get back for. They don't feel like they're missing out on anything if they come in for training. So you are actually balancing up different nationalities and cultures who approach Christmas and Christmas time very, very differently. Yeah,
no, it's a good point. I think that, it's like everything. You kind of always view it from your own standpoint, don't you? You always, I suppose as staff, we accept that is just part of it, isn't it? But normally, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're waving bye to your family. There's a little bit of remorse and sadness as you go out the gate, usually from my comments about pasta, in truth. But as you're driving...
Be gone, Gary.
As you're driving out the gates, a little bit of you think, oh my God, like another year, another year where I can't stay there with all your family around and have a drink and enjoy it like everyone else. Listen, when your kids are young, there's also a part of you thinking, oh my God, thank God I'm out of the house. I've had the morning from about 8. You know what it's like Christmas morning, your kids open the presents when they're all young. Then they usually start arguing. Then Chris had been up so early, they're then tired. By the time you get to about 10 or 11 o'clock, it's like Armageddon in the household, isn't it? So actually, getting out for a game is not the worst scenario in the world. So, but they're a little bit older now, so we can all enjoy it a little bit more. But that's the thing, isn't it? So 3-4 o'clock, you're usually driving somewhere, whether you're going straight to the game, whether you're heading straight to a hotel rather, and everything's so different, isn't it? You get to the hotel probably a little bit later because you're trying to help the player. So maybe 8-9 o'clock. Who invented soup and sandwiches? I mean, soup.
It's a sports science thing.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Soup and sandwiches.
You learn that in your first year.
So you don't even get a proper meal because no one's working in the hotel. So you get soup and sandwiches. So I think the preparation, I think that's the challenge, isn't it? An elite, well, I say this loosely, but an elite athlete, they like regularity, don't they? They like, or good performance should have consistency, shouldn't they? So,
absolutely, yeah. And
I think that's a challenge. The whole period is very much different from what they used to, but yeah, it's a strange old time.
Yeah, it's a challenge, when we're planning the logistics of Christmas to get a hotel who's going to be able to cater for you at the level that you want to. And depending where you're going, they may be on short staff because, of course, they want to give their staff time off. The actual expense to a hotel over that period is probably triple time for part-time staff to come in on Christmas Day.
That's how we stayed in such terrible hotels.
Well, we have to balance it. We got so much budget and so little hotel choice. But, that becomes a challenge. And as you say, the players like predictability. Some are quite happy. They'll pack up. Some have actually in the past, I've seen pack up a little mini Christmas dinner for themselves and bring it to the hotel.
No way, you never told me that.
100%, yeah. I was in League One for a period as well, And then others just expect that it's going to be absolutely the same as every other game. And sometimes we can't even control that. So that's certainly a challenge. But one of the big benefits, I suppose, nutritionally is, as commuters ourselves, the unbelievable amount of chocolate that you have for your commutes for the rest of the year.
Yeah. You're not going to be short of that, are you? Yeah. Pinch of pinch a box of celebrations that's lying around on the floor somewhere. And that's gone by the time you get to, definitely gone by the time you get to Cardiff, that one, isn't it?
I look at it as like I'm stopping my kids having to indulge in too much chocolate by taking it for myself and making sure that I spread that over the next week or 3 days.
Very nice. Yeah. Or even storing the winter supplies.
Winter supplies, yeah. Like hibernation.
Like hibernation. So do you like boxing? Could you say you like the Boxing Day fixture?
I do like it because I think there's a slightly different atmosphere in the grounds. I think because it's Christmas, people are generally a little bit more positive and happy. Hopefully they've had a good Christmas and they come to the game. And I suppose over most of the years I've been working with it and been fortunate that you're in a reasonably positive position in the league. So people tend to come out and support, and you get fuller grounds, don't you? Because families go out for the day and go to the football. It's quite traditional. And I think even the players who we've worked with who've come from abroad see it as such a nice thing, because a lot of leagues around Europe closed down.
Yeah, this right, don't they?
This weekend, like the German league is closed down, so there isn't any festive football. So they look at it as a very much an English thing or a British thing, that there is football over Christmas period.
Harry Kane must be devastated. He could have scored another 15 goals in that time frame, couldn't he? That extra month.
Could have got him on a short-term loan.
He could have. Yeah, I wonder what he's doing. Maybe back in London, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Look, I think that's a challenge, isn't it? And also, that old kind of saying that, Christmas can make or break your season. And I understand that. I think a lot of these are just sayings, really, aren't they? We get equally as big a volume of games at different periods of the season, but I think it's probably because it's usually midpoint of a campaign, of course. You've usually got 3 or 4 games fairly close together. And the reality is, particularly in the EFL, you're playing so many games, and because the divisions are so tight, you can jump up. If you have a good Christmas period, you can jump up 5, 6, 7 places, can't you? So, that I think that's why it's so important. That's why we go back to the Christmas do for the players. Look, let's just make sure it doesn't affect, these next 2 or 3 games. Making the right decisions on Christmas Day, making sure that we make the right choices when we come in, how we travel. It's because it's so important. You can't throw away 3 points, 6 points over this period, can you? So, it is a very important. I love the Christmas games. There's just something different about them, aren't they? Like you say, maybe because it's different from other leagues, maybe because it's different from a lot of the other countries. But I think it highlights how passionate and how strong the English game is and the English fan base is, because, you'll go into League One and you'll see at grounds, you might see 25,000 people on the Boxing Day game. That's just incredible.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
You wouldn't see that in a top flight of some of the European countries, would you?
No.
I know, look, there's brilliant games and just as much passionate fans, but there's just such a high volume of clubs with fans who just turn up in their numbers time and time again. And of all the periods to maybe feel like you don't have to, Christmas could be one of them. It's expensive to go to games, but yeah, it's a phenomenal period, isn't it, of time. And then actually you then get the FA Cup game, which is difficult because it's such a traditional competition, but you can understand how some managers perhaps at clubs higher up maybe see the FA Cup as a chance to just give the players a little bit of a breather from Christmas and maybe put some players in who haven't played. But that's the challenge of any of these periods, isn't it?
Yeah, I look at the Christmas period. It's so difficult. If you get it right, as you've just said, you can gain a lot of points and move up pretty quick. If it doesn't go well for you, you've got no time to instigate any change. You can't train. You pick up some injuries. There's no time for any of those players to come back. So very, very quickly, if you look at, say, the month of October, you could have 4 games across a whole month. Well, over Christmas, you have 4 games in 10 days. And it's the same volume of games, but none of the training, none of the recovery, none of the preparation, none of the analysis. Whatever's changed in that time has changed. And suddenly you can find yourself flying out of Christmas and looking forward to the new year, or thinking, oh my God, we're in a tough spot now. And a Christmas period that hasn't gone well can really sow seeds of dissension for the second part of the season.
Yeah, it's like you say, I think you sort of know what the second part of your season might look like, don't you? Based on, this period, you pick up a few wins, suddenly maybe, you're sat in 8th or 9th in the championship and you're thinking, do you know what, we've a couple more wins and we get on a little roll and we're right in the mix. You lose 2 or 3 and all of a sudden you're sat there going, we're 17th, we just need a few results, and the pressure starts to ramp, doesn't it? So, but the reality is we've seen lots of teams be low down in January and put a run together that climbs the table and gets them in the mix, and likewise we see teams that are up there and can't maintain it because maybe they're a little bit confident and comfortable where they are, and all of a sudden within 5 or 6 games you fall back down. So yeah, and of course the Christmas period as well for the performance team and the medical team is a big period in it. It's where you need a good team, don't you, to make sure that everything you're doing helps the players recover, doesn't it? That's crucial, isn't it?
Every modality you can afford to get your hands on is going to be...
go through them. Give us some.
Oh my God. Well, from ice baths straight after the game to whatever nutrition you've already had to pre-order most of the stuff like weeks ahead, if not months ahead, because some of the services you want are going to get booked up by your rivals or by other teams in similar leagues or other leagues to you. So there's a little bit of a rat race going on anyway. I think, again, going back to what we said, the players like predictability, they like consistency in delivery. And even though it's a 2 or 3 day turnaround, they don't want to suddenly see that you've suddenly changed something violently in the middle of this period because it's Christmas. It's like, what do we normally do? Let us prepare that way. Don't suddenly do wild and weird things across this period. So I think the players, I think they love it as well because it's like game to game to game. It's great fun for them as well. And certainly there's a lot of time spent together. So I hope they just enjoyed that Christmas party, but not too much.
We've got 7 days till Christmas, I believe. So is that right?
That's it, yeah.
So do we try not to get a job in the next 7 days so we can enjoy Christmas, or do we get back in so we can enjoy the Boxing Day fixture?
Well, you keep that phone charged.
I'll keep it on charge. Let's see what happens.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give us a like or subscribe to us on your chosen podcast provider. We look forward to seeing you on the next show.